In the mid-14th century, Europe was hit by one of the most devastating events in human history, the Black Death. Between 1346 and 1353, a microscopic bacterium, Yersinia pestis, spread across continents, killing tens of millions and reshaping societies overnight. But what was the genetic impact of the Black Death, and how is it still felt in people's DNA today? Now, the origins of the pandemic are linked to Central Asia, likely around the Tian Shan mountain ranges that run through modern-day Kyrgyzstan and other countries. From there, the disease moved westward, along trade routes like the Silk Road, eventually reaching the Black Sea. In 1347, it entered Europe, via merchant ships arriving in Mediterranean ports, and from that moment on, it spread with astonishing speed. Within just a few years, it had reached nearly every corner of Europe. The mortality was catastrophic. Estimates suggest that between 30 and 60% of Europe's population died, roughly 25 to 50 million people. Entire communities vanished, and normal burial practices collapsed under the sheer number of dead. Yet, the plague did not kill people randomly. Instead, it acted as a very powerful force of natural selection. And this resulted in it changing one of the most important systems in the human body, the immune system. But this came with lasting trade-offs, something we'll discuss shortly. Now, evidence suggests that individuals who were already in poorer health or whose immune systems responded less effectively were more likely to die. That means the survivors were not just lucky. They were, in many cases, biologically better equipped to survive infection. And this created the conditions for rapid evolutionary change. Now, one of the most important genetic signals linked to the Black Death involves the gene called ERAP2, which plays a critical role in immune defense. It helps process fragments of bacteria and present them to immune cells, allowing the body to recognize and attack pathogens more effectively. And research comparing DNA from plague victims and survivors suggests that individuals with a specific functional version of this gene had a significantly higher chance of survival. Individuals carrying 2 copies of this variant close to the ERAP2 gene were about 40% more likely to survive the Black Death than those without it, according to certain studies. And that's an enormous effect over such a short period of time. Because these individuals survived, they passed this variant on to their descendants. As a result, its frequency likely increased in the population during and after the pandemic. This is one of the clearest examples of natural selection acting on humans in recorded history. But like many evolutionary adaptations, this advantage came with a cost. The same immune-related variants that help some people survive the Black Death are also associated with a higher risk of developing autoimmune diseases. Conditions like Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and lupus are all linked to an overactive immune system, one that reacts too strongly or inappropriately. So the traits that once helped people survive a deadly infection may now increase the risk of the immune system turning against the body itself. And that legacy may help explain why certain inflammatory conditions are relatively common today. Beyond ERAP2 as well, it is likely that multiple parts of the immune system were affected. So the Black Death created lasting changes in many people's immune systems. But this also came at a cost. Now, alongside natural selection, there is another really important concept we need to understand as it pertains to the Black Death, and that's the population bottleneck. Now, a population bottleneck describes a population that is rapidly reduced in size due to famine, conflict, or other variables, leaving only a limited group of survivors to pass on their genes. Because the surviving group represents only a fraction of the original genetic diversity, certain alleles can become much more common or disappear entirely, purely by chance. As a result, the population often shows reduced genetic variation, increased genetic drift, and sometimes a higher frequency of rare or harmful traits. Over time, this can shape the genetic profile of the population in lasting ways, even after numbers recover. Now, at first glance, the Black Death looks like a perfect example. In England, for instance, the population may have fallen from around 4.8 million to just 2.6 million in a matter of years. But there is an important distinction. Not all bottlenecks leave a strong or lasting genetic signal. For a bottleneck to significantly reshape genetic diversity, it usually needs to be both severe and prolonged, with limited recovery or migration. And this is where the Black Death becomes more complex. In some regions, there is clear evidence of a genetic bottleneck. Studies from places like Trondheim in Norway show reduced diversity after the plague, along with a drop in long-distance immigration. This suggests that in smaller or more isolated populations, the effects of the Black Death were more pronounced. But in many other regions, the long-term genetic impact appears much weaker. In places like medieval London and parts of Denmark, genetic diversity remains stable before and after the pandemic. So instead of looking at the Black Death as one large continental-wide bottleneck, what we see is a series of local bottlenecks. Some communities experienced sharp reductions in diversity. Others maintained it. And crucially, many populations recovered relatively quickly. Within a few generations, population numbers began to rebound. And as they did, migration played a major role in restoring diversity. After the Black Death, labour shortages created new economic opportunities. People moved more freely, especially into cities that lost large portions of their populations. This movement helped mix genetic variation between regions and prevented long-term isolation. There's also the question of general health and survival. Because the Black Death likely affected people with weaker health more severely, it may have indirectly selected for individuals with better overall physiological resilience, not just against plague, but against multiple stresses, including other infections and poor nutrition. This kind of selection is difficult to measure directly, but it's an important part of the broader picture. The pandemic didn't just shape one gene or one trait. It may have subtly shifted the overall biological profile of surviving populations. So the Black Death acted as a massively powerful filter, one that favoured certain immune traits, albeit potentially at a cost, created local population bottlenecks, and reshaped patterns of movement and mixing. It lives on not in obvious physical differences, but in how the immune system functions, how it responds to infection, and even in the risk of certain diseases. But what does your eye colour say about your ancestry? Well, to find out, please click here. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and hit the bell, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.